I want to talk about the difference between the mobile phone network and also Wi Fi communication, and really just to understand the differences between these two ways of communication that we so often use with our mobile phones in particular. So Wi-Fi and mobile uses wireless technology, and this uses radio waves. So it's not like you need to be connected by wires, and it allows us to connect to the internet. So our phones allow us to connect via the mobile phone network or via Wi-Fi. So the mobile phone network is made up of towers that look a lot like this shown in the picture here. I'm sure you've seen these dotted around the country on top of tall buildings and so on. Almost every day you see them. Now a phone and a tower can communicate from up to 45 miles away. And as you move around, your as you move from one location to another, your phone communicates with the towers that are in the closest proximity, that allows you to have this continuous communication, because over a region there'll be lots and lots of these towers scattered around, and therefore you can be in pretty much continuous internet communication. Mobile phone networks have improved over the years. They now have higher transfer speeds than they used to as they move through the generations. I'm sure you've heard of 3G, 4G, and 5G. So in 3G, the broadband speeds were pretty slow. You could do pretty basic things. You could send text messages. You could do web browsing. 4G allowed you to download some videos and music. It still took 6 minutes to download a 2 hour long movie. But now, in the generation we are at now, 5G, really fast broadband speeds, and you can download a 2 hour movie in 4 seconds. And this allows you to download HD videos and use the Internet of Things. So that's using many devices connected to the internet. So it's able to make the most of that. Now, talking about Wi-Fi network, the way this works is you have your devices, they're connected via what's called a wireless access point, which will most likely be, for your at home, this will be your router. The Wi-Fi itself requires broadband internet connection, but the connection between your device and the router, that's completely wireless. For most home wireless networks, we have something called a WAP, and that's this integrated inside your router. And this has a range of approximately 10 meters. If you travel too far away from your house, outside the end of your garden, for example, you might not be able to access Wi-Fi too far away. And the device that you're on will need to have what we call a wireless network adapter. So this will be embedded within your phone, within your laptop, within a tablet. What I want to do now is just look at a few scenarios that considers when you use mobile phone network or when you use Wi-Fi. Quite often when we're connecting on our phones to the internet, we don't really know whether we're using our own mobile phone data or whether we're using the Wi-Fi. And it is pretty seamless in that sense, right? But it's probably a good idea to understand a little bit about the two different networks, because they work optimally in the different circumstances. So let's dig down a little bit by looking at a few scenarios. So the first one here is imagine you're in a cafe, you don't have much mobile phone data on your left, maybe you're getting warnings or something pinging up on your screen, and so you want to conserve your mobile phone data. What do you do in that situation? Well, in that situation, what you can do is you can use the Wi-Fi that the cafe has. Many cafes now have Wi-Fi access. They often advertise it as sort of a selling point to use their cafe. And well, you may need to ask for a passcode, but you can access their Wi-Fi. That way, then you're not using up your mobile data and you're connecting to the internet via Wi-Fi as opposed to through the mobile phone network. Now consider another scenario where you're out in the country, there's no buildings around, so basically no Wi-Fi, and you need to book a taxi on an app. Well, in this case, the only way that you can do this will be through the mobile phone network, assuming that you're not in such a remote location that there's not any of those towers around. If there are any of those towers around, if there aren't any of those as well, you'd be completely stuck. You won't have a Wi-Fi, or you won't have the mobile phone network. But most places, especially within the UK, will have some coverage, even if that coverage might be not that quite weak. So you'll have maybe have a weak signal at least. Imagine you're in a public place. So again, you could be in a cafe, but in an airport, for example, and you want to buy something online. So you'll need to send your bank details over the internet. Now, just have to be really careful with public Wi-Fi because it may not be completely secure. So in this situation, what you would do is you would explicitly turn off your mobile phone Wi-Fi so that you could then use your mobile phone network to access it, which will be a safer way of conducting your transaction. Now, in another scenario, you might get this icon appear on your phone. So you have basically no internet access via your mobile phone network. So all your bars there are empty. You can see that there. In this situation, then, there are a couple of things you could do. You could use Wi-Fi access, assuming you're in a building that has that Wi-Fi. Maybe you're at home, maybe you're in a public place that has Wi-Fi. Or alternatively, what you could do, you could move to another location into the line of sight of a mobile phone tower. So you may have to, even sometimes even stepping a few hundred yards might actually work and get you into the line of sight of a phone tower, which then give you that mobile phone access to the internet. Imagine a scenario where you're going to a music concert and you're trying to arrange a meeting with your best friend at the venue. Why is it that you can't rely on the mobile phone network in this situation? Well, in this situation, if you have a lot of people, as there will be at a music concert, in one location, so they'll be connecting their phones to only a few of the mobile phone towers. What happens is that network then becomes overwhelmed because so many people in one place are trying to use that network at the same time. So you're going to have to make other arrangements to meet your friends. So you'd have to either travel with them to the venue or maybe meet them in some pre-arranged location. So yeah, do not rely on your phone network and your mobile phone connection working in that situation. Imagine you're at a friend's house, but for some reason you can't get connected to the Wi-Fi. What might be the reasons for this? Well, most likely is that you don't have the passcode. So you need to make sure you ask your friend's parents or whoever it is that pays the bill for the passcode. Another scenario is that you might be at home and previously you've been able to access and use the Wi-Fi network, but now you're not able to. What's going on? Well, things could have changed, right? So for example, someone could have changed the passcode for the router without telling you. Someone has maybe turned the router off. Maybe something outside and completely outside of your control. For example, some road workers outside the house might have accidentally cut through a fiber optic cable. It does happen from time to time, and so the whole street then won't have access. You could be in a different room away from the router. So in some houses that have really thick walls, perhaps it may not be able to access wirelessly through that wall, right? So you have to maybe just find another room in the house where you can access it. And it could be other devices that are interfering, like vacuum cleaners potentially interfere with the network as well. Again, continuing with more scenarios here, we've got a situation where you might be going on a long car journey. You don't have access to Wi-Fi, but you want to watch some movies on your tablet to keep you entertained. What can you do? Well, generally speaking, mobile phone tablets are not mobile enabled, so you won't be able to access the mobile network on them. Right? So you can't use mobile network to view videos and films on your tablet. So the best thing to do in this situation is to download all your movies to your tablet at home. So before you go on the journey, do all your downloading before. That way, then they are stored locally on the tablet, and then you can watch the movies offline while you're traveling. Imagine you are chilling at home again in a scenario, and your tablet starts buffering, so you get a bit of a delay. What's the reason for this? Just so you understand the idea of buffering, what this means is that ahead of time, before you want to get the data you actually need in that moment, the data being downloaded ahead of time temporarily. What this does is it helps keep a smooth playback when the data are not being downloaded fast enough. So in situations where the data may be downloaded too slow, then this will just keep it smooth and there's less sort of buffering and less sort of stopping. In this situation, what could be happening is that maybe the broadband connection is being kind of overwhelmed a little bit. So lots of people are trying to access the network. So your parents might be watching their movie, your siblings maybe doing an online game. So lots of access is happening through the router, and so it'll just slow things down because there's lots of data being requested through the network. I just want to mention another feature of your phone, which you may not be aware of, but what you can do, you can use your phone as a wireless access point so that other devices, so for example, your tablet, can access the internet by connecting through your phone. So what happens is you set your phone up as a hotspot, and then other devices see that hotspot as a Wi-Fi network. So this is a way of enabling your tablet perhaps access to Wi-Fi if there's no other Wi-Fi network available. So in summary then, just look at the benefits and limitations of each of these ways of connecting to the internet. So you've got Wi-Fi. With Wi-Fi, benefits of this is there's basically no limits on how much data you can send and receive. It has really, especially with 5G, it has really high rates of data transfer. Problem with Wi-Fi is that it's not always available. Of course, you either need to be at home or in places where there's public Wi-Fi or in other areas that has Wi-Fi available for you. And there will be issues of security, particularly around public Wi-Fi networks. Benefits of mobile phone network use is that you can use them almost everywhere, assuming there are mobile phone towers dotted everywhere. Maybe there are some remote locations, high in the mountains, for example, where you might not be able to access them. But generally speaking, you can access anywhere. Their limitations might be places where you have a poor signal, right? It might be one issue. You might have kind of a plan where you just have a limited amount of data per month, let's say, and you might run out of data some inopportune time. That can happen. And also mobile phone data can be relatively expensive, especially with roaming charges abroad as well. So I hope that's given us sort of a flavour of distinction between the two types of networks. As I said, we tend to use them without really being aware of which network we're using. So it's good to understand that distinction between those two networks.